An extended version of this video with no ads, longer song samples, and additional thoughts is available on Patreon and Nebula. Links are in the description. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome back to the Deep Discog Dive. I'd like to introduce you to my twin bro. Fuck you. No, fuck you! Every day you're sitting on that couch going like, oh, my name's Michael. You wanna go right now, man? I swear to God. Today, we're talking about Oasis. Let's dive in.
If you played a good song in a concert, do you get sweets after?
Yeah, sort of.
Why don't you?
Okay.
Imagine yourself in early 1990s Manchester, a small suburb called Burnage, specifically. A few of the blokes in town formed a band called The Rain. The blokes in question were Paul McGuigan on bass, Tony McCarroll on drums, Paul Bonehead Arthurs on rhythm guitar, Chris Hutton on vocals, and absolutely no one else. Except nevermind, in the spring of 1991, Chris got the boot. His replacement was a buddy of Paul's who had occasionally sung with the band, Liam Gallagher. Liam initially wasn't into doing music, but he changed his mind after getting hit in the head with a hammer, something that I can relate to. Man, I hate Eiffel 65. Ugh. Liam not only brought a distinct voice to The Rain, but also a new name. With him as frontman, The Rain would be known as Oasis. The name came from the Oasis Leisure Center in Swindon, which Liam knew of from a poster in his brother's bedroom. Speaking of whom, while Liam was getting his feet wet with Oasis, his brother Noel had been working as a guitar tech for Inspiral Carpets. But he was a musician in his own right. He had even tried to sell some of his songs to other bands, but no one was interested. When he got home after a tour, Noel saw Oasis play live and was impressed. Side note, the word "not" was silent in that sentence. Noel wasn't into them, but he did see opportunity. He went to the band and offered to join under one condition. To put it bluntly, he would run that shit. Songwriting, creative control, rehearsal schedule, all of that would be under Noel's direction. This was a condition that the band was fine with. The Rain was mostly doing covers, it wasn't a serious band, and Noel was already a seasoned touring pro from his time with Inspiral Carpets. Plus, he had a boatload of songs already, many of which would become Oasis mainstays. When you've created Live Forever, you're in a higher class of people. 1992 was a year of work for Oasis. They played a ton of shows around Manchester. Their fan base grew, as did Noel's catalog of songs. At this point, their sound was loud and brash without sacrificing melody and songwriting. A distinct sound for the Manchester area at the time, which was still engulfed in the mad Chester sound thanks to bands like Happy Mondays. Their inspirations were other rock bands from the UK, the Smiths, the Stone Roses, the Jam, but if there was one band that had imprinted hard on Oasis and the Gallaghers specifically, it was the Beatles. I cannot stress this enough. If the Beatles didn't exist, Oasis wouldn't exist. I'm not even gonna entertain the idea of them still existing, but like, as a ska band. Hell, Liam's full legal name is William John Paul Gallagher. Oh yeah! It was May 1993 though, when Oasis began moving towards the next phase of their career. That next phase started at the place where all dreams come true, King Tut's Wah Wah Hut in Glasgow. The band had secured an opening slot for Sister Lovers, and who happened to be in the audience but Alan McGee, head of Creation Records. He was quite impressed with the band and offered them a record deal on the spot. And in June 1993, Oasis officially locked the hell in with Creation Records. Their first recording under Creation was the live demonstration tape, which was recorded in autumn 1993. While the tape is readily available online today, only 10 copies were made back in the day. This tape helped get the buzz out to folks about Oasis while they were recording their debut album. Initial sessions for that album started at Minot Valley Studio with producer Dave Batchelor. The resulting recordings really sucked. Something wasn't clicking. Liam would say that the sessions were haunted by a ghost. Ooh. So then the band went to Sawmill Studio to re-record everything. These sessions also didn't go well. The biggest detriment to the recordings was Noel's tendency to layer on a ton of guitar overdubs. But since the budget for recording was gone, the band was stuck with these tracks. In order to make something out of nothing, Creation Records hit up mix engineer Owen Morris and said, "Look, this is doo-doo. We need you to make it not doo-doo." So he employed a whole bunch of techniques to give the album the same raucous feel that the band's live shows had. Most importantly, he compressed the ever-living hell out of the music. making it less dynamic and way louder than any other rock album at the time.
Give it up for Oasis, making their TV debut with Supersonic. I need to be myself.
In August 1994, Oasis definitely made their debut with Definitely Maybe. Why do people like this band? That might sound like I'm baiting someone to throw hands, but I'm not asking that because I don't like Oasis. On the contraire, my pair, I love Oasis. But trying to describe why is kinda hard. It's like trying to describe why a blue sky is good, or a warm embrace from a dear friend, or those TikToks where guys break ice. What makes an Oasis song good? I hate to say it, vibe. It's the energy, the swagger, the guitars are blazing, the drums are pounding. The Liam is the Mick Jagger of Stone Roses. There's a confidence that is injected into every song. You get the feeling that these guys can do whatever they want. I mean, opener Rock and Roll Star is in the key of B major. Who the fuck let them do that? Well, I suppose confidence on its own doesn't necessarily make a band, but you know what helps? Really good songs. Definitely Maybe is stuffed with good songs. They're oozing out of the walls. The Cannonball Bring It On Down, the tender Slide Away, the thundering Up in the Sky, the bluesy Shaker Maker. That last one had a lawsuit over its similarity to that song from the famous Coke ad. Honestly, seems a little harsh. You know, they're helping the brand. After I heard this song, I went out and bought Coke. Lead single Supersonic was the only song to not come from those Sawmills sessions. It was recorded in December 1993 at the Pink Museum. Frankly, I fell in love with it the second I heard that opening guitar line. And of course, one of Oasis's defining songs, Live Forever. This one is meant to be uplifting. Really? I mean, it does have a good message about having nothing but still being happy. I think I just don't believe it when it comes out of Liam's mouth. I don't know, I just always get this slight feeling of sarcasm with anything he sings. Like a lot of great debut albums, Definitely Maybe gets its power from its simplicity. This is Oasis Concentrate, the purest distillation of what makes this band work. Future albums will add and expand on their sound, but for now, Oasis were a bunch of lads making some killer rock music. Aw yeah, this is happening. Definitely Maybe was an immediate commercial success, becoming the fastest selling debut album in UK history at the time. Their sound was seen as a response to grunge, a brighter, happier counter to the sullen sound of America's standout rock genre at the time. In fact, Oasis would become figureheads of a new rock genre in the UK, Britpop. And sure, some of their rise was due to the really good songs, but Oasis, specifically Liam and Noel, were charismatic and relatable. Normal-looking, rough-around-the-edges kind of guys who were a bit arrogant, but they made Bring It On Down, so it's kinda okay. Definitely Maybe came out right in the middle of the band's first world tour, and it only added fuel to their growing popularity. However, this wasn't all positive. On September 29th, 1994, the band played at Whiskey A Go-Go in LA. Oasis have two gigs that could be deemed the worst gigs they ever did, and this was the first. The show was terrible, due to the band being high off their minds on crystal meth and Liam chucking a tambourine at Noel. Noel ended up quitting that night, flying to San Francisco, and writing the excellent B-side Talk Tonight. Thankfully, the band's management convinced him to come back. This was the worst incident from this tour, but it was far from the only one. Now is probably the best time to tell you that Liam and Noel do not get along. And that is the most amicable way that I can put it. Their feud is, for better or worse, the defining characteristic of Oasis outside of their music. What caused this feud is a bit of a mystery. This incident at Whiskey was the first major instance of them fighting in public as Oasis, but they had been at odds well before that. Some have pointed to a combo of brotherly competition as well as a difficult upbringing. Liam also once said that it's because he pissed on Noel's stereo as a kid. It wasn't just the two brothers who clashed. Following this tour, Tony McCarroll left the band due to difficulties with Noel. He was replaced by Alan White. Tony's last appearance on an Oasis song was the 1995 single Some Might Say, which became the band's first #1 single in the UK. Some might say it was also the lead single for Oasis's next album. Because it was. This new album was recorded between May and June 1995 at Rockfield Studios in Wales. Noel and Owen Morris served as co-producers. The sessions were remarkably efficient, 15 days in total, one song recorded on each. Plus, the band was showing clear signs of growth as musicians, something that was apparent in their more orchestral, standalone single from late 1994, Whatever. Still, these sessions weren't completely pain-free. At one point, Noel whacked Liam with a cricket bat because Liam brought some friends into the studio. That cricket bat would later be sold at auction in 2011. Who owns that cricket bat now? Do you think it's like hung above their fireplace like a prized marlin? But looming on the horizon was something that would hit even harder than a cricket bat to the head. A battle. A feud that would impact every British citizen, young and old, men and women, boys and girls, who are boys who like boys to be girls. Girls who are boys who like boys to be girls. At this time, there was another band that was leading the Britpop charge, Blur. They had been around longer than Oasis, but they also popped out in the mainstream in 1994 with their album, Parklife. Thanks to the two bands egging each other on and the press fanning the flames, their rivalry became a beef for the ages, and it culminated on August 14th, 1995, with the Battle of Britpop. Two songs were released that day, Oasis's Roll With It and Blur's Country House. This was the moment that would forever cement which band was better and which fan base would see the gates of heaven. I know everyone's been waiting 30 years to hear my opinion about this, and I should stress I am a fan of both Oasis and Blur. But to me, this particular matchup feels a bit Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby. Roll With It is one of Oasis's best songs. Country House is fine. Now, if this was Roll With It versus Coffee and TV, or Parklife, or Tender, or hell, I'll even be the stupid American and say Song 2, then this would be a legit fight. But Country House, However, turns out my 30 years late opinion didn't matter squat because Country House got to #1 and Roll With It got to #2.
Although it's a taking part that's important, not the winning. We don't want a civil war, but tonight there's no denying Blur are top of the pops.
But the battle certainly gained a lot of attention for both bands, and Oasis were ready to capitalize on it. In October 1995, Oasis released What's the Story? Morning Glory. Morning Glory is the thing that all sophomore albums should be. The same thing, but better. Everything that worked on Definitely Maybe is here, but amped up to the 9s. For example, they nailed the opener with Hello. It's perfect. It's literally a greeting. The album is saying hello to you. Hello, I'm Morning Glory, Bangers and Mash, Tosser. It even foreshadows Wonderwall, with that song's chord progression kicking the song off. It's super short though, so it's more of a wonder fence. The highlights continue to come. Some might say, Cast No Shadow, the title track, Roll With It, as I mentioned before, one of the band's best songs. Don't Look Back in Anger is a first for the band. Instead of Liam as lead singer, it's Noel. He does a great job, especially with a song that is, according to him, about nothing, but the chorus is like definitely about moving on from a relationship. One of the best Oasis songs to sing along to. People have debated for years over which Gallagher brother was the better singer, but I'll offer this. Noel may have been the better vocalist in general, but Liam was the better vocalist for Oasis. It's worth keeping in mind that in popular music, having a technically good voice isn't always as important as having a distinct voice. She's Electric is flat out the most Beatles-esque song in Oasis's whole catalog, and I adore it. It's the love child of When I'm 64, and With a Little Help from My Friends, with Liam singing about being into his girlfriend's mom. Some folks peg Oasis as Beatles ripoffs, but in my opinion, ripping off other artists is totally cool if you know who and what to rip off. Musical inspiration comes from all sorts of places, and if you're gonna take from other music, you might as well take the best from the best. If you tried ripping off Prince by becoming a Jehovah's Witness, you've missed the plot, you know what I mean? If you're gonna rip off anything from the Beatles, it should be the timelessness of their melodies. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Today. Yes, that's exactly right. Genuine question. Why did this song become a meme? Noel, do you know why?
Why that song took hold on the planet the way that it did is crazy. There's no rhyme or reason.
All right, excellent. I don't even know if I can have any straightforward, unironic feelings about this song. Those feelings are probably buried underneath decades of memes and Neil Cicerega mashups. I will say though, the chord progression is simple and good. And to bring it all home, the album closes out with Champagne Supernova. What is this song about? No idea, but God does it feel so good. Absolute euphoria for about 7 minutes. This is also a good time to say, this album is loud. Definitely Maybe was also loud, but Morning Glory is loud. The mix for Champagne Supernova is basically a bunch of white noise with Liam going nah 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 over it. And it rules. More so than any other band in history, the loudness is the point of these records. If I can't take the waveform of an Oasis song and slide it into a hot dog bun for a fun treat, then what's even the point of it all? Morning Glory is stellar. Oasis had always been cocky believers that they were the greatest rock band to ever exist, but this right here is 50 minutes of cold hard proof that just maybe they could be right. Morning Glory was the second fastest selling album in UK history, second to another famous British musician, Michael Jackson. Not only that, but the album also got to number 4 in the US, largely off the back of Wonderwall reaching number 8 on the Hot 100, the only Oasis song to crack the top 40 in the States. Does that mean Oasis is technically a one-hit wonder in the States? This might surprise you though. Critical reception for the album was a bit mixed. I think the press at the time saw Oasis as a bit pedestrian, especially compared to Blur's album around this time, which was praised super hard. But that didn't stop the two Gallaghers from being full-on UK celebrities. You want proof?
You're proud about getting thrown off ferries, then why don't you go and support West Ham? Get the f*** out of my band and go be a football hooligan, right?
This is Wibbling Rivalry, released sometime in late 1995. What is Wibbling Rivalry? It's a 14-minute long argument between Liam and Noel. There is no music, to be clear. It is just the argument. It hit number 52 on the UK charts. Here's more proof. In August 1996, Oasis did 2 shows at Knebworth. That's a legendary venue in the UK. It's like Madison Square Garden or the Hollywood Bowl in terms of cultural significance. When you do a show there, you know you've made it. And not only did Oasis do 2 shows there, but over 250,000 people attended in total, making it one of the most attended runs of shows in the venue's history. The only person to eclipse that number was Robbie Williams in 2003, and that's really only because he did 3 nights instead of 2. Not to be all good things are about to stop happening, but looking back, this was the peak of Oasis. It's not like the boys had stopped fighting though. They very much still were. The same month as those Knebworth shows, Oasis did an MTV Unplugged performance in London. However, Liam said he had a sore throat, so Noel and the rest of the band played without him. And it was a good show. Hearing Noel do songs normally sung by Liam was nice. It ended up being worthwhile for everyone in the audience. Hold up, is that Liam? Yep, Liam was watching the entire thing from up in the balcony. He even heckled Noel a good deal. Suffice it to say, the band wasn't fond of that move. Clashes like that eventually led to the US leg of their tour ending early. But hey, at least that gave Noel time to start whipping together demos in late 1996, with recording for their 3rd album starting in January 1997. Some have pegged that decision by the band to go back into the studio so quickly while Morning Glory still had a strong cultural presence. They pegged that as a mistake. Had they come back home, recharged their batteries, and then gone back into the studio, the things that were about to happen may have looked very different. As it was though, recording for this 3rd album was done at Abbey Road and Ridge Farm Studio. How to phrase how these sessions went? I'll let Owen Morris describe it. Quote, massive amounts of drugs, big fights, bad vibes, recordings. But the public wouldn't know any of that. To them, Oasis's 3rd album was an event, a global Thursday release date at a time when albums came out on Monday, a huge push by their label. Journalists even had to sign NDAs before hearing the album ahead of release, with the documents joking that they couldn't even discuss it in bed with their partner.
Honey, why can't you fall asleep?
What the hell is a magic pie? In August 1997, Oasis gave us Be Here Now. If the Nebworth shows are considered the peak of Oasis, Be Here Now is considered the downfall. For as long as I could remember, it was thought of as this disaster of an album, one of the worst things to happen in rock music. That discussion made me think that these guys had gone in like a totally different direction and had betrayed the fan base and all that. So you could imagine my surprise when I put the album on and found out it's an Oasis album. On the surface, Be Here Now is no different in sound from Definitely Maybe or Morning Glory. It's loud rock played by some Manchester blokes. And just like the two albums before, there are some great songs. The opener, Do You Know What I Mean? I think it's good. I like the vocal harmonies on the chorus, I like the strings, I like the overall epic feeling. Some might say that the lyrics don't really mean anything, especially when the chorus has the Gallaghers doing their catchphrase. Do you know what I mean? But when have abstract lyrics ever kept an Oasis song from being good? Slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball? What the hell? Magic Pie has perhaps the stupidest title in Oasis history, but I like the chorus melody and Noel performs it well. I also like this little section that ends each chorus. Don't Go Away is a heart-wrenching ballad with gorgeous strings and an excellent performance by Liam. Fade In Out strikes me as Oasis's take on Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, and I like that. So far, you might think that I like this album. But then you keep listening to it. When Owen Morris said that there were massive amounts of drugs during the Be Here Now sessions, he was underselling it. Be Here Now was a drug trafficking operation disguised as an album. Between the insane amounts of cocaine, the pressure to one-up Morning Glory, and Noel being surrounded by yes men, Oasis simply did not know when to stop when it came to making these songs. For one thing, they're massive in scale. Strings, mellotrons, unconventional song structures, hip-hop samples, Beatles references. My Big Mouth reportedly has 30 guitars on it. That's like 34 too many. For another thing, the songs are longer. Look at the runtimes for the songs off the first two albums. They're averaging around 4 to 5 minutes. Totally acceptable. On Be Here Now, nearly every song goes towards the 6 to 7 minute mark. I have no problem with longer songs, but A, in moderation and not back to back to back, and B, when the songs earn it. Most of the songs on Be Here Now do not earn their runtime. Stand By Me, for example. I like that song, but every time I hear it, I have to spend a moment to recover after hearing Liam go, "Stand by me," 100 times in a row. Most of the songs could have been cut to 5 minutes and nothing of value would have been lost. Oh, actually, let me add a C to that list. When the album's volume isn't drilling holes in your head. I said before how the loudness of Oasis albums is the point, and I'm about to eat carrion crow for that. Be Here Now feels even louder than the past two albums, but when you combine that with the song lengths, you're not sliding a waveform between those buns now, you're shoving in an 18-wheeler. To listen to Be Here Now all the way through is a fatiguing experience. And if there's one song that sums up the album to a T, it's All Around the World. This was actually one of the first songs Noel ever wrote for Oasis, and it must have been cool for him to realize his vision as 9 minutes of sheer excess. First off, Liam shouldn't have been the one to sing it. I buy Liam on She's Electric when he's talking about hooking up with his girlfriend's mom or denying paternity. I don't buy him when he's preaching world peace. He just does not sound sincere. Second, I like the hook well enough, and the production is certainly expensive, but you keep listening, and it just keeps throwing more at you. Guitar parts, strings, horns, Liam with his nasally na-na-na-nas. A key change in the third chorus, a second key change after that chorus. Oh, a third key change! How very Christmas of you, Noel! And for the ultimate screw you moment, they had the balls to throw one more song in after All Around the World, and then hit you with its reprise. Noel Gallagher, I am in your walls and I have been since I was 2 years old. Now at this point, you might think I hate this album, but I don't. Be Here Now is an Oasis album pushed to its absolute extreme. and so it warrants extreme reactions. Some of the band's best songs are here, but it's not an album you will want or even physiologically be able to listen to over and over again. Be Here Now became the fastest selling album in the UK, and it would hold that title for a good while, right up until Adele's 25 took it. It also hit number 2 on the US album charts, their highest position to this day. Reviews were also quite good at the time, almost a little too good. Some folks in the UK music press have said that Be Here Now's rave reviews were an overcorrection to the magazine's whiffing it with Morning Glory. They've also said that the grip Oasis had on the public led to press outlets realizing they sorta needed to cover Oasis to get traffic and hopefully cover them in a positive way. However, critical reception would sour kinda quickly, actually.
Be Here Now might not sustain the band's popularity. Do you know what I mean? It's a great f***ing song.
Yeah, that's right.
It's getting better, man, all around the world.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far. The album sold 8 million copies by the end of 1997, but most of those sales were within the first 2 weeks. Melody Maker even found it to be the album most sold back to record stores just 2 years later. I can speak on that anecdotally. When I was younger, I used to go into Goodwill and Savers and rummage through their CD sections. There were a couple albums I would always see. Seal 2, the one with Kiss from a Rose, The Wallflowers, Bringing Down the Horse, Springsteen's Born to Run, but the album I saw most often was Be Here Now. The biggest critic of Be Here Now, though, was Noel. He did not like how the album came out and has spoken about it multiple times.
With the whole Be Here Now, do you ever listen to that and go, actually, there's some good tracks on that?
No. You know what I mean?
Be Here Now is also considered the end of Britpop, though that's not really Oasis's fault. The optimism that had permeated British culture was, for various reasons, starting to fade, and soon enough, other bands would come to represent a new, moodier stage of UK rock. For the first time in a while, recording for a new album did not start right away after a tour. In fact, the original plan for Oasis was to do just 3 albums and then walk away. Why that plan changed has never been confirmed, but I would be willing to put good money on the fact that Be Here Now bombed. And you don't want to end on a bad note. That's like the rule of Game of Thrones. You end on a bad note and that's what you're remembered for. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't get new music from Oasis. At least it'd be new if you didn't live in the UK. This is where I tell you that everything I've said about why Oasis succeeded has been a lie. The real reason that this band was truly revered, their real sauce, was their B-sides. An Oasis B-side can power a small village through a bitter winter. Noel didn't really discriminate between A-side and B-side in his writing, and the result was a collection of original B-side material that could have easily been album material. And even when they did covers, they made them shine, like their cover of Slade's Come On Feel the Noise. However, these B-sides were effectively landlocked to the UK, so Oasis and Creation had an idea to compile some B-sides into one album for a bunch of territories except for the UK. But then the UK public was like, gimme, 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 gimme. So they released this collection there as well. The Masterplan, released in November 1998. Imagine if you were playing basketball, but in order to dunk, you could just stand still and the net would come to you, and also you'd get a hot stone massage. That's this album. It's the easiest win Oasis could have scored at the time. This recaptures that pure, simple vibe that the best songs off the first 2 albums had. Likely because these were all written around the same time period. Acquiesce is special for a number of reasons. For one, it's called Acquiesce. When's the last time you heard the word acquiesce out in the wild? What a neat little word. It's like when you hear serendipity out in the wild, which is funny because that is a serendipitous moment. It's also special in that both Noel and Liam have lead vocal duties. In my research, there's only 3 songs in the band's history where they both have the spotlight. Talk Tonight, from when Noel quit the band in 1994, is on here. Given the circumstances of its writing, it's quite an emotionally raw song. Going Nowhere is a super chill song with a heavy Burt Bacharach influence. Other songs have that effortless Oasis vibe like Fade Away, Head Shrinker, and It's Good to Be Free. Oh, and of course, the absolutely stellar title track, right up there with Don't Look Back in Anger as one of the best feel-good sing-alongs Oasis ever made. The only negative thing I can say is that there aren't more of the band's B-sides on here. Where's Come On Feel the Noise? Where's Whatever? Where's Step Out? Where's Round Our Way? Where's Do You Wanna Be a Spaceman? Where's Cloudburst? Cloudbusting? Some have said that the Masterplan should have been Oasis's third album instead of Be Here Now. One of those people being Noel Gallagher.
Do you think you should have done Masterplan as an album?
Yeah, of course. That's the one regret I have as a songwriter. If that would have been our third album, it'd have been a different story completely.
And you know what? No, I don't agree. Here's the thing, right? The Masterplan on the whole is better than Be Here Now, but the Masterplan, in my opinion, does not work as a follow-up to Morning Glory. Had the Masterplan been the third album, I guarantee you people at the time would have pegged it as a step down. The band that was known for going louder and harder with each new album, putting out a new record that was good but not as ambitious as the one before it, the band would have been done for. The Masterplan just doesn't have the same sense of scale that Be Here Now does. We can slag Be Here Now for a lot of things, I just did like 5 minutes ago, but it was made like that for reasons. There's context to its making that we can't just separate. You can say a lot of things about Be Here Now, but you cannot deny that it is the follow-up to Morning Glory. So no, I don't think the Masterplan should have been the third album, but it is still really good. The Masterplan sold quite well for a B-side album. A little under 1 million copies in the UK at the time, Oasis was still commercially as big as ever, even if their critical standing was a bit weaker. Recording for their fourth album started around spring 1999. Instead of Owen Morris, the band brought in Mark "Spike" Stent, best known at the time for his work with Massive Attack, Björk, and Madonna. That wasn't the only change. For the first time, the dudes were sober. No drugs were involved in the making of this album. They also changed labels. This new album would be released under Big Brother Recordings, Oasis's new label. The Masterplan was their final release under Creation since Alan McGee closed it down in 1999. The final change was the most unfortunate. Both of the Pauls, Bonehead and McGuigan, left the band during recording, likely to spend more time with their families. They were replaced by Andy Bell from the band Ride on bass and Gem Archer on guitar. By the way, great name. Or like, it'd be even better if his first name was pronounced Gem, because then that would be like an RPG class name. Embark to the forgotten land of Zelbeth as you become a Gem Archer and venture out on a quest to defeat Glimblebonk. Oasis's fourth album, released in February 2000, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. That's not a typo, I checked. Here's where we enter a new phase for the band, one that I think is pretty interesting. Oasis had conquered the world, or at least the UK, in the 90s, but this was a new decade. The drugs were gone, the hype had died down a bit, and the band had to answer a question. Who are Oasis after Be Here Now? Let's find out. Alright, so they've got the snare from Saint Anger. Not what I expected, but okay. This Oasis is still pretty in line with what they've been for the past decade, but there's a little bit more to them now. Not in volume, but in musical diversity. More synths, drum loops, other instruments that were new to the band. This was no longer guitars and like perhaps a single audible bass note. You can hear that shift most clearly on the hypnotic Go Let It Out, the psychedelic Gas Panic, and the instrumental opener F***ing in the Bushes. Thank goodness Oasis got to that song name before the Wiggles. All that said, the album isn't perfect. The more straightforward Oasis songs can be hit or miss. I like Where Did It All Go Wrong and Roll It Over, not so much Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. From what I've read, the two most hated songs on here are Little James and Sunday Morning Call. The first one is unique in that it's Liam's first songwriting credit and a song about his newborn son. I'm willing to give it a pass for those reasons, even if the MIDI choir vocals feel half-hearted to me. Sunday Morning Call? No strong feelings. Don't hate it, but I gain nothing from listening to it. If someone told me I had to eat it for the rest of my life, I'd ask how eating a song is possible. Growing Pains? For sure. Oasis were figuring themselves out again. But there are still some great songs here. Even though they needed the shoulder of giants, Oasis stood tall.
Baby, I'm playing on you tonight.
Shoulder of Giants became the 16th fastest selling album in UK history. See, that's close to Be Here Now. 1 in 16 both have 1 in them. Some of that underperformance might be due to Walmart refusing to carry the album because of explicit material. whatever could they mean by that? Reviews were mixed as heck, too. Once again, the album came out in the middle of a worldwide tour running from December 1999 to July 2001. It's been a while since we heard about personal issues within the band. I wonder if hey, Noel quit the band. Yep, he quit once again in May 2000, later saying it was due to Liam's monkey boy behavior. Was he confusing Liam with Robbie Williams? Noel had always been vocal about quitting the band, usually in a jokey way, but he became more serious about it once his daughter was born. He would come back to play the UK shows and rejoin officially once the tour ended. But this tour wasn't a total wash. We did get the band's first live album in November 2000, Familiar to Millions. This was taken from their two-night stint at Wembley Stadium. Legendary spot, massive crowd. Liam was in such a rough condition that they needed to pull vocals from other live shows. I mean, he couldn't have been that rough, right? I don't like to get into the nitty-gritty of artists' personal lives when I can help it, but I will say here that both Liam and Noel were not doing super well at this point. Remember how I said the last album was made without any drugs? Well, as you can see, Liam relapsed hard during this tour, and Noel had traded cocaine for Valium. Plus, both were dealing with marital troubles. Within 2 months of these Wembley gigs, they both separated from their wives. For the sake of pacing and not getting too sad, I'm gonna move on, but if you want to learn more about this gig specifically, check out this great video from James Hargreaves' guitar. The band's 5th album, Heathen Chemistry, released in July 2002. Boy, must feel good to like this album, huh? I don't think I've done this before, but I'm gonna play you a clip from my original DDD on Oasis that I did back in 2019.
Boring. So boring. Just move on. Next, please.
I remember getting a lot of pushback for that comment, and I will let you know that I am gonna give Heathen Chemistry a fairer shake. But you should also know, my finger is hovering over the button, so don't make any sudden movements. It's interesting, a lot of people peg Standing on the Shoulder of Giants as the Come Down album, and I suppose they're not wrong, but that record also changed the style up and tried new things. To me, Heathen Chemistry is the real Come Down album. This is just them going through the motions, doing the typical rock sound, but with the band self-producing, though Mark Spike Stent is back as mixer. Any changes to the band were done behind the scenes. The biggest one? Songwriting duties. 11 songs on here, and Noel only wrote 6. Liam wrote 3 songs, Gem wrote 1, and Andy wrote 1. This is the most democratic Oasis album to exist as of this point. While that's all good for them, I mean, I've still gotta listen to it. It's like they painted the walls in their house, but the outside looks like this. What I mean is, while it's not bad or boring per se, I just don't think Heathen Chemistry has a lot going for it. There are good songs, of course, the opener and lead single The Hindu Times, Stop Crying Your Heart Out, Better Man, Born on a Different Cloud with Johnny Marr on guitar, the instrumental A Quick Peep. I just struggle to have strong feelings about the rest of it. I think it's important to view this album as an evolution for the band internally, while Giants was an evolution externally. A necessary step for the band, even if it's one that I don't wish to revisit all that much. Hindu Times is great though, for real. Heathen Chemistry and its singles did pretty well in the UK, but came and went in the US. Other rock bands were coming in to define the 2000s. On the popular rock side, there was Nickelback, Creed, and on the indie side, The Killers, White Stripes, Broken Social Scene, Mark That Par, Chop That Roan, Jeep on the Door, Dream About Cheese. Not helping their prospects was their tour being plagued with issues. A show was canceled because Liam got a throat infection and not the MTV Unplugged kind. A handful of US shows got canceled due to Noel and a few others getting in a rough car crash. A string of Munich shows got canceled after Liam was arrested following a bar brawl. Not a fun time by any means. In December 2003, recording started on a new album, but instead of Mark Spike Stent, they were joined by electronic duo Death in Vegas. How dare my pure rock and roll be tainted by repulsive dance music? Joking? I say that in jest. Actually, I do think Liam would sound pretty good over like full-on rave music. I kind of wish he did it at some point, but if you were worried about the sanctity of Liam Gallagher, don't worry, the material from these sessions was scrapped. the band regrouped in January 2004 to write new songs, this time with Dave Sardi as mixer and co-producer. One last lineup change before this new album. In early 2004, Alan White left due to disagreements with Noel. He was replaced by Zach Starkey, Ringo Starr's son. In May 2005, Don't Believe the Truth was released. Up to this point, the arc of Oasis reminds me of the arc of another rock band from around this time, The Strokes, which is funny because I think in my Maroon 5 video, I also compared their arc to The Strokes, so I guess I'm comparing Oasis to Maroon 5 as well. Era-defining first two albums, third album bogged down by excess, fourth album diversified stylistically, but Don't Believe the Truth is their new abnormal. It is, pound for pound, the best Oasis album since Morning Glory, or Masterplan if you count that. You can tell Oasis found their footing again because they're using their old logo on the album cover instead of that new one that had like a line running through it. Aside from the logo, you can also tell they're so back because of the songs. I don't know what these boys were drinking during these sessions, but good lord, everyone was on the ball. Noel's in top shape again with songs like Lila, The Importance of Being Idle, and Let There Be Love. The rest of the band continues to contribute songs, and some of them, like Gem's A Bell Will Ring and Andy's Keep the Dream Alive, are simply excellent. Zach doesn't get any songwriting credits, but his drumming breathes new life into songs like The Meaning of Soul, and the production on the whole takes on this rougher, almost rustic feel. It's like they've traveled back in time to record these songs in their garage in Burnage. I'd like to take a second to shout out two of the best songs Oasis has ever done, smack dab right next to each other. The first is sung and written by Liam, Guess God Thinks I'm Able. You know, like that able. It's depressing. But it doesn't sound depressing. In fact, this is one of the best acoustic numbers in the band's whole catalog. Good on you, Liam. The second is Noel's Part of the Queue, and the thing I love about this song is one specific moment. It's after the second verse, when the piano enters. I can't play you the full bit because of YouTube's copyright system, but trust me, go to the 2:15 mark, it's gonna blow your mind. I cannot believe I'm praising the mixes of the band that made Be Here Now. I'm not gonna tell you this album is better than those 90s albums, I don't think it is, but after hearing D-Bit, I felt hope for this band again. Whatever they lost after Be Here Now, they were starting to get back. Not only was Don't Believe the Truth the best commercial success for Oasis since Be Here Now, but it got good reviews across the board. The same month the album came out, the band went out on the road for a tour that ran until March 2006. And for the first time ever, I don't have any stories to share. Seriously, there were no big problems or incidents on this tour, no Liam throwing a dragon fruit at Noel, and then Noel quitting to go to Bangladesh. This tour went off without any major hitch. The first mention of a seventh Oasis album came in January 2007, when Noel told NME he wanted the next album to sound colossal, like Be Here Now. Oh no. Recording kicked off for this new album at Abbey Road in August 2007. Both brothers were really excited about this one. Noel said all the demos they had were great, Liam said the album was gonna be f***ing rockin'. There was a good energy around this one. In October 2008, Oasis released Dig Out Your Soul. If D-Bit was the 2000s Definitely Maybe, Doise is the 2000s Morning Glory. It takes everything that D-Bit did well, but polishes it and gives it more heft, more oomph, more pa-pa. True to Noel's vision, this is the loudest Oasis album since Be Here Now. And honestly, I think they nail it here. I think one crucial reason they nail the colossal sound is not every sound is equally colossal. Bag It Up opens the album by pummeling you with drums, guitars, and strings, but then the turning is a lot more dynamic in its performance, makes the chorus feel even more impactful. Plus, the diversity of instruments on display here goes way past even Shoulder of Giants. Choirs, mellotron, tambura, melodica, jail. It feels like the band was learning to use the studio as an instrument again, after Be Here Now was all like... I know I praised the songwriting contributions of all the bandmates before, and they do bring good songs to the table here, but I gotta be real. The MVP is Noel. He's responsible for, in my opinion, the two best songs here. The Shock of the Lightning, and Falling Down. Allow me to bring up my point about ripping off artists a while back. The drum pattern on Falling Down is like nearly identical to Tomorrow Never Knows. But I don't care because it's a sick drum pattern and it sounds great here. It was also, and I'm not making this up, it was very briefly the intro song for an anime. I did not edit this. This is very real. It was only used for one episode, but still, that is wild. Do you think the Gallagher brothers know what anime is? Do you think they like it? The acoustic numbers here are fine, like I'm Out of Time, which was written by Liam and samples John Lennon's final interview at the end, and Get Off Your High Horse Lady. Which is funny because if you remove the parenthetical, it makes it sound like this song is about a high horse lady. I think by this point, Oasis had answered that question I asked earlier. Who are Oasis after Be Here Now? And the answer was a rock band. Which sounds like a no-duh thing to say, but the Oasis that got big in the 90s wasn't really a band. It was a vessel for Noel Gallagher to write songs that just happened to have other guys. Oasis in the 2000s was a group effort, and while I'm not gonna say they were doing better or more relevant work than in the 90s, they certainly weren't going down the loo. The path was now clear for Oasis to truly become a new version of themselves. So why is this the band's last album?
Je suis très désolé, mais Oasis ne marche pas.
Oh, Oasis are cancelled.
August 28th, 2009, the Rock on Seine Festival in Paris. Oasis were headlining, but 5 minutes before going out, Liam and Noel had a fight. Them fighting was of course not new by this point, but this fight was different. Not only did Oasis not perform that night, but Noel announced the same day that he was leaving the band for good. Direct quote from him, "I simply could not go on working with Liam a day longer." Now, I said that Noel left the band, but in practice, this meant the end of Oasis. Even with songwriting duties more spread out, Noel was too big a part of the band to lose. Plus, carrying on as Oasis may have led to legal battles over who owns the Oasis catalog and Big Brother recordings, though I guess the answer is in that name. The Gallagher brothers were, for the first proper time, out on their own.
Everybody just f***ing calm down.
Now, I don't cover solo albums individually on this series, but I will give you an overview of what Noel and Liam got up to after Oasis split. Let's start with Liam, since he made moves first. Later in 2009, he formed a new band, BDI. Remember how I said earlier that Oasis couldn't carry on without Noel? I never said they had to be called Oasis. BDI is the Oasis lineup at this time, minus Noel, and with Oasis's touring drummer at the time, Chris Sharrock. They went on to release 2 albums, Different Gear Still Speeding in February 2011, and B in June 2013. The underperformance of the latter led to their breakup in late 2014. It would be a bit until we heard from Liam again, with his first solo single, Wall of Glass, in June 2017. I would say this is the first time Liam had ever stepped out of Oasis on his own, but his first solo credit was technically a song by Death in Vegas. As of now, he's put out 4 albums: As You Were in October 2017, Why Me, Why Not in September 2019, Come On You Know in May 2022, and Liam Gallagher, John Squire in March 2024. Can you guess who else is on the album? Now rewind back to 2009. What did Noel get up to? The sky. He got up to the sky because he was working with birds. In July 2011, he announced a new band, Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. The name came from the Jefferson Airplane song High Flying Bird and Noel's appreciation of Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, the first bluesy iteration of Fleetwood Mac. Gotta admit, it's pretty funny that Noel took inspiration from the band that is arguably most famous for band drama. While High Flying Birds was Oasis-less at the start, Gem and Chris Sharrock did join up with Noel after BDI split. And if you're curious, Andy Bell went back to Ride after BDI. They've also released 4 albums so far. Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds in October 2011, Chasing Yesterday in March 2015, Who Built the Moon in September 2017, and Council Skies in June 2023. The easiest way to separate the two brothers' careers is that Liam's work is leaner, edgier, and more commercially successful, while Noel's work is more lavish, experimental, and critically successful. Also, Liam has the better social media presence, and it's not even close. One thing these two careers share, though, is the fact that they're both fine. Like, I apologize if anyone out there is like really into either brother's solo stuff, but I personally can't match your excitement. And that's not to say that any of these albums are bad or anything. It's just the way that it is with solo careers sometimes. Sometimes the solo career can take off. Michael Jackson had a bigger career than the Jackson 5, Robbie Williams was bigger than Take That, Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel both had stellar solo careers after Genesis, but you notice how all those examples are individual people? The gravitational pull of Oasis had always been the Gallaghers. That was the main event. Noel was the measured disciple of rock songwriting, and Liam was the brash champion of pissery. Together, those two forces can create magic, but separate, they're fine. And I know I'm not alone in that feeling, because even though both brothers have maintained solid careers on their own, people have kept asking for a reunion. Both Liam and Noel have commented on it, even saying that folks have offered ridiculous amounts of money for it, but they kept turning it down. It had been the question that raged on for over a decade. What was more powerful, the Gallaghers' beef or the biggest pile of money you could think of? For any other band, the money would win, hands down. But for Oasis? Hell hath no fury like a Gallagher scorned. However, in 2024, the unthinkable happened.
Yes, Oasis fans hoping that this morning they will hear the news that they've been waiting for years, that the legendary band are getting back together.
In August 2024, Oasis announced their reunion, a worldwide tour starting in July 2025. The brothers were back together. Now that this thing that everyone wanted to have happened has happened, the question is, why is this thing even happening in the first place? I imagine some of it is the biggest pile of money you could think of that I mentioned earlier, but to counterbalance that cynicism, I think they're both just older now. Like, Liam's 52, Noel's 58. I imagine carrying a grudge towards family for that long takes its toll on you, and maybe they just wanted to bury the cricket bat. I don't know them personally, so I can't say for sure. That's just my guess. The tour sold out basically instantly, and now we're just waiting for them to kick it off. Also, I don't normally do this, but I feel the need to date this video. I'm filming this on June 13th, 2025. This video should be coming out in mid to late June. As of now, Oasis are still together. So if chicanery ensues on this tour, if Liam whacks Noel with a pool noodle and then Noel quits again, I wouldn't know about that. I hope they don't break up again, but we shall see. If you want to get into Oasis, definitely check out the first two albums, plus the Masterplan, and then I would also recommend Don't Believe the Truth and Dig Out Your Soul. And if you want to hear more about artists and their albums and their stories, check out my deep DISCOG dive on Arctic Monkeys.